Well, let's do this once more with feeling. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the April 15th Finance and Audit Committee meeting. I'd like to first recognize we are gathered on the traditional territory of the Snuneymuxw First Nation. Our clerk today will be Ms. Sheila Gurry. We also have Councillors Manley and Armstrong attending electronically. Welcome. Today's Finance and Audit Committee will be held in accordance with the Community Charter, Council Procedure Bylaw 2018, number 7272. If during the meeting any member of the gallery has a question related to that was considered by the committee, please sign up on the sheet located on the table to the double doors by my left. And please note that the Council Procedure Bylaw states questions will only be taken on staff reports or other business items. And noting the absence in the audience of anyone who isn't staff, I'm not going to read the usual warnings about behavior and cheering and jeering. We have no late items, Ms. Gurry. A motion for adoption of the agenda. Move Councillor Thorpe.
Your Worship, there was just one late item. My apologies. Not noted on an addendum, but just a PowerPoint. A couple of the slides changed. For the PowerPoint, noted the 2026 to 2030 financial plan recap. There was just a couple of slide changes.
Okay. Thank you. Motion for adoption of the agenda as amended. Move Councillor Thorpe, seconded Councillor Brino. All those in favour? Any opposed? None. Motion for adoption of the minutes is circulated. Move Councillor Hemmons, seconded Councillor Eastmere. All those in favour? Any opposed? None. We have nothing to rise and report on, Ms. Gurry. And reports, we're on to the first one, which is the 2025 annual financial statements. And Ms. Bates.
Your Worship, my apologies again. There is a rise in report that is not noted on the annotated. Ms. Mercer, would you mind stating what the rise in report is? My apologies.
Yeah, Your Worship, the in-camera motion, that needs to be put into the budget, so we need to rise and report on the grant.
Okay, Your Worship, you'll be rising and reporting on the motion to give $60,000 to the Bank of Ireland Military Museum within this budget. I'm not sure if we have to read the exact motion, Ms. Gurry?
Yes, it would be to provide a one-time payment of $60,000 in 2026, inclusive of operating and capital, to be funded through taxation and amend the 2026-2030 financial plan for final to incorporate this payment. So that is the rise and report that we are rising and reporting on from the closed portion of today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we've risen and reported then. Well done. Now we can go on to reports. Yes? The 2025 annual financial statement, and Ms. Bates-Seymour is going to present. Please, welcome. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
And is Ms. Burden attending via Zoom as well, or?
I believe she is on there. Hopefully. Can't see her. So I think there we go. So in terms of the status of our audit at this stage, we're very close to the end. The only last remaining steps in the audit would be having the discussion with the Finance and Audit Committee today. And then once Council has accepted the financial statements, which we anticipate occurring on May the 4th, we will be in a position to sign our opinion. We'll collect the management representation letter from management on that date, as well as do our final inquiries of subsequent event procedures right up to that date. And then we plan to issue our opinion as drafted in the draft financial statements, which is a clean or unqualified opinion that the financial statements present fairly in all material respects in accordance with the public sector accounting standards. There's no changes to the wording of the opinion this year. It'll look exactly the same as last year. I confirm that we received full cooperation from management. We received a full package of all of the working papers that we request on day one of the audit. We get the financial statements in a state where they're very close to perfection on the first day of the audit, which is very, very high quality preparation. So thank you to the team for that. I'll also confirm our independence at this stage of the audit. We remained independent throughout our work for this year. In terms of the risk that we did identify in planning for this audit, the one risk that we have to identify in all audits, not unique to the city of Nanaimo, was the risk of fraud due to management override of controls. We addressed this risk with testing of journal entries. So we're looking at any unusual journal entries that could identify that any kind of controls have been overridden to book things in a certain way. We look at significant estimates or unusual transactions, and there's nothing to report in terms of addressing this risk. Our full report does discuss the procedures that we performed over the various areas of audit focus there, and then our findings on those areas. Just to highlight for revenue and receivables, we're doing a combination of testing, back to grant invoices, we call vouching, and also analytical procedures. So for example, the tax revenues we can anticipate based on rate times assessments. For expenditures, other than wages, we're looking at cutoff, so looking at subsequent payments to make sure that you've captured everything in the year. Salaries and benefits, we do kind of a combination of analytical procedures as well as looking at, you've got some liabilities for employee future benefits, so looking at the estimates that are performed of those liabilities by your actuary. Capital assets, we are doing vouching, recalculating amortization, looking at the repairs and maintenance expense to make sure that you haven't put anything through as an expense that should have been a capital asset. And cash and investments and debt, a big portion of that is confirmations with third parties, looking at bank recs, that type of thing. So all of this to say that we really found nothing in terms of our testing. There was one item that did roll forward in terms of an audit difference, so there was nothing that we found that was corrected. There was one item that remains uncorrected, which related to the revenue recognition of certain climate action grants, and this was identified in the prior year. Whereby amounts had been brought in through revenue and put into a reserve to spend on climate action activities, but the accounting standards suggest that those items were restricted enough that they should have remained on in a liability account or a deferred revenue account until the time that the activities were undertaken. So this year, the balance of what's in equity has gone down by 451, which should have been the amount that came through revenue this year coming out of deferred revenue. So this should be gone, I think, by next year if the rest of that money that's left in that fund related to those grants has been deployed, or it gets below our posting threshold, which it's close to getting. In terms of any control observations, so we did not identify any significant deficiencies in internal controls, nor do we have any sort of other minor control recommendations to report. We've issued a management letter to that effect. Just a reminder too that we aren't doing all of our testing is not testing internal controls. We would identify an internal control deficiency kind of as we go about our other procedures, and so sometimes that can arise when there are errors, because then you ask yourself, why did the error occur, and that usually leads you to a potential control deficiency. With no errors, nothing's coming out of that. We also have to obtain an understanding of your internal controls on all of the financial reporting processes and whatnot, and in doing that, we do kind of do a walkthrough of one transaction just to make sure it's working the way that it's being documented, and nothing came out, nothing stood out in terms of the way that any of those processes were working, or it came out of our testing. So very great result, or clean result for the city. The only other thing I'll mention that we always include in the back of our audit findings or report or audit planning reports is just to identify that there are some future accounting standards changes coming up. It won't be for this year, it won't be for 2026, but in 2027, you would expect that once you have adopted the new conceptual framework and the financial statement presentation section, that your financial statements will look a bit different. We're thinking for the most part, it's going to be a bit of a rearranging exercise in the presentation of what your statement of financial position looks like, the addition of a new statement. That'll be worked through at the time in 2027, and obviously the comparative figures for 2026 will be in there when you produce your 2027 financial statements. So.
If I can just interrupt and ask, is this a result of, quote unquote, the accountants and the professional body making these changes, or is this provincial, or?
Yeah, the Public Sector Accounting Standards Board is a national entity. Yeah. I think that's it for me. Just again reiterate my gratitude to management for making this a very, very smooth process for us, and it's always a pleasure to work with them all.
Thank you very much. I'm not seeing any questions. Thank you to you for the presentation as always, and thank you to Ms. Mercer, Ms. Fuller, Mr. Bailey, the team. Well done as always. Love to get a good report card. Anyone care? Councillor Perino's making the recommended motion. Councillor Thorpe seconding. Any discussion? All those in favor? And any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Well done. And we're on to presentations now. The 2026-2030 Financial Plan Recap. Ms. Fuller, good morning. Please, floor is yours.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. This morning, we'd like to provide an update on the 2026 to 2030 Financial Plan. The presentation reflects all changes made since Council adopted the provisional budget in January. The updates include refined cost estimates, incorporation of final assessment growth figures, and amendments arising from Council direction. The 2026 property tax increase is currently projected at 6.3%, which includes 1% for asset management. This does not include the impact of the decision that you made earlier this morning regarding the Vancouver Island Military Museum, so this number will change when we bring it back for first three readings. The 5-year financial plan incorporates staffing additions previously approved by Council, including the remaining 8 of 12 new RCMP members being phased in between 2025 and 2027, as well as the remaining 4 community safety officers, completing the approved program expansion of 10 new positions over 2 years. Projected future tax rates reflect the scheduled conclusion of debt servicing for the Vancouver Island Conference Centre in 2026 and 2027, as well as Fire Station Number 4 in 2027. These projections also incorporate the anticipated impact of borrowing recently approved for the Public Works Yard upgrade. In addition, future tax rates reflect the planned conclusion of our 1% property tax increase dedicated to the General Asset Management Reserve in 2028. Staff have initiated updates to both the 20-year investment plan and the asset management plan, and we're targeting bringing the updated analysis and recommendations to Council in 2027. It is anticipated that these recommendations will include additional property tax increases to enhance contributions to the Asset Management Reserve and help address the city's long-term infrastructure funding gap. Back in December, the 2026 user rate bylaws were adopted by Council, and there has been no changes to these rates. This slide provides a summary of recent property tax increases. When looking at these increases, it's important to consider the significant service enhancements Council has approved over the past several years. Many of these decisions have directly impacted operating costs and staffing levels, particularly in the areas of public safety and community services. Key investments include the implementation of the Fire Master Plan, which added 20 career firefighters in August of 2023 and another 20 in January of 2025. In 2022, we added 12 community safety officers, with an additional 6 in 2025 and 4 more this year. In addition, 2 community clean teams were made permanent in the budget in 2022 to support cleanliness and safety in public spaces. RCMP staffing has been increasing steadily as well, with a total of 21 new members added over 5 years to better support community safety. Beyond these public safety investments, Council has also added resources to maintain service levels as our city continues to grow. At the same time, we've been managing operating costs driven by post-COVID inflation as well as new tariffs, which continue to place budget pressures on the city. These investments reflect Council's ongoing commitment to community safety, livability, and reliable service delivery, and help explain the property tax increases shown on this slide. A 6.3% increase is approximately $195 for the average home whose value changed the same as Class 1, or $239 when we include projected user fees. This excludes property taxes that the city collects on behalf of other governments, such as the Vancouver Island Regional Library, the Regional District, the hospital, school tax, MFA, and BC assessment. $3,286 in property taxes includes $2,705 towards the everyday services you use. This is maintaining your parks and sports fields, supporting recreation and culture facilities, ensuring community safety through police and fire services, and maintaining our roads and storm sewer infrastructure. $42 will go to debt servicing for the VICC, Fire Station Number 4, and the Public Works Yard project. $363 will go to reserves. This includes contributions to our General Asset Management Reserve, our Equipment Depreciation Reserve, our IT and Photocopier Reserves, the Climate Action Reserve, as well as Q Field and Harewood Artificial Turf Field Reserves. And finally, $176 will go towards funding projects.
And just to be clear, the debt servicing costs are 1%.
Of the typical homes, 2,700, and yes, of their percentage, yes. For the
Ms. Bailey, Mr. Champagne, read it and weep.
Yeah, because once VICC and Fire Station Number 4 pay out, the only debt being paid from property taxes that we'll have is the Public Works Yard upgrade, because of course Fire Station Number 1, we're funding that debt servicing from our General Asset Management Reserve. We have a bit of sanitation debt, but that's going to pay out shortly, and that's funded from user fees. And then, of course, we have the water treatment plant debt, but that's funded from water user fees. The $2,705 for city services broken out by area includes $686 for the RCMP, $513 for Nanaimo Fire Rescue, which also includes our 911 service and emergency management. $464 supports Parks, Recreation, and Culture. $305 supports corporate services, which includes the Finance Department, Information Technology, and Corporates and Business Development, under which the Vancouver Island Conference Centre, Tourism Nanaimo, and Nanaimo Prosperity Corporation fall. Corporate services also includes general government budgets, such as grants to organizations such as NALT and CatNap, corporate insurance, as well as committed contingency. So in committed contingency, of course, we have the negative wage contingency for anticipated vacancies in the general fund. As well, in committed contingency, we do have the funding for the new QP agreement and management increases, as due to the timing of the contract settlement, we haven't had time to allocate it out to the individual departments. There's a fair bit of work to allocate it all out. So at this point, it's still all sitting under committed contingency and corporate services. We have $286 for engineering and public works, and this doesn't include sewer, water, and most sanitation costs, as they're funded by user fees. Police services at $141 is our municipal employees who support RCMP operations and the operation of our police facilities. Public safety includes bylaw, including animal control, our community safety officers, as well as social development. And city administration is the CAO's office, legislative services, and HR. When broken down, this equates to $7.41 per day for the services that keep our community safe, connected, and vibrant. These investments ensure reliable emergency response, well-maintained public spaces, and infrastructure that supports quality of life for our residents.
Quick question, just a quick question, Your Worship.
Please.
I'm just noticing a difference in the PowerPoint that I have on the software here and the PowerPoint I'm viewing on the screen. So the typical home says 2,705, Mine says 2,679. I might have missed something on the, is there an update to the PowerPoint that it hasn't gone to,
Correct, the
reader yet?
PowerPoint was amended.
Yeah, I mentioned that in late items, Councillor Manley, through you, your worship to Councillor Manley. The PowerPoint was replaced.
Oh,
So it
hasn't
will
gone.
be updated and as a supplemental item, but yes, it was updated and replaced.
Okay, thanks.
Eagle eye. Well done, Councillor Manley.
Total revenue for the city is budgeted at $295.4 million. This will provide funding for operations, projects, reserves, as well as the Vancouver Island Regional Library. Revenue excludes, that's weird, any new borrowing and transfers from reserves, as those are considered funding sources, not revenue, as 61.1% property taxes make up the largest share of city revenue. Our annual operating and maintenance costs total $228.5 million. This figure excludes projects, both operating and capital, as well as the Vancouver Island Regional Library. This chart identifies where our resources are focused in this year's budget. Looking at community services, we've broken it into 3 categories: parks, recreation, and culture; community safety, which includes Nanaimo Fire Rescue, public safety and police services, and accounts for $51.3 million, and the RCMP, which represents $38.9 million. Together, these last 2 areas within community services make up just over 39% of the city's operating budget, which highlights the significant investment in public safety. The Port of Nanaimo Centre has been separated out from corporate services, and this includes the operating costs for the Vancouver Island Conference Centre, as well as the common areas the city is responsible for the Port of Nanaimo Centre. And we've also shown sewer and water separately from engineering and public works for clarity. What changes have occurred since the provisional budget was approved? First, we'll look at changes that impacted property taxes. In the fall, we identified 6-figure budget drivers for 2026. For final, we have some new budget drivers as well as changes to previously discussed budget drivers. Starting with 911 services, the 2026 contract amounts for ECOM and FireCom were finalized, resulting in a decrease from the provisional budget of $32,500. This brings the net change over 2025 to $96,000 increase, meaning it is no longer a budget driver. We had a $79,000 decrease for corporate insurance as we received our 2026 MIABC invoice, and it was lower than estimated. Just under $110,000 was added to Parks Operations landscaping budget for a watering contract. This brings the net change over 2025 for Parks landscaping to a decrease of less than $10,000, meaning it is no longer a budget driver. We have a $823,000 decrease for the RCMP contract. This includes a delay in the anticipated start date of our 4 new members to the end of the year, as well as conversion of the anticipated public sector position to a municipal employee position. And finally, on the expenditure side, we have a $916,000 increase for wages and benefits. As you recall, at provisional budget, we did not have final benefit rates in. Final benefit rates are now reflected in the budget. The position that was moved from the RCMP contract to the municipal position is reflected here. We've also had some minor adjustments to existing positions. We've had adjustments to committed contingency for the new contract agreement, and we've increased the negative committed contingency amount for vacancies in the general fund from $750,000 to $1 million based on our 2025 financial results as well as current trends. On the revenue side, the RDN rec sharing agreement came in almost $97,000 more than anticipated. This brings the total change to $103,000 over 2025. We've increased the budget for tax penalties and interest by $117,000 for final based on our 5-year average. This brings the total change to $175,000 increase over 2025. Under other changes, they total $261,000, and the 2 most significant changes here are a $107,000 increase for debt servicing related to the general portion of the Public Works Yard project debt, and a reduction in projected grants in lieu revenue of $168,000 due to properties that were transferred to Sunamo First Nations. And finally, the impact of final growth numbers less final 2025 supplements resulted in a reduction of $145,000 from provisional to the property tax increase. The net impact of these changes is a decrease of just over $7,000 or 0.01%, which means there's no change from the provisional budget of 6.3%, as for presentation purposes, we do round to 1 decimal place. We also had a number of other changes to the budget that didn't impact property taxes. On the project plan side, we've added a project for a new transformer at the Nanaimo Aquatic Center. We've had some changes to timings of projects, grants we've applied for, grants we were successful for, as grants we were not successful for. We've had some updates to cost estimates, and we've also received council direction on some projects. We reduced the projection for the casino revenue, which decreased the contribution to your strategic infrastructure reserve. However, we also increased the projection for Fortis revenue, which goes also into your strategic infrastructure reserve. The total impact of those two changes is just over an extra $15,000 going into the strategic infrastructure reserve for 2026. Budget was added to fund the current 50% DCC waivers and reduction program, and that was funded from 2025 surplus. We added 2 grants, one to InFilm and one to the Children's Health Foundation. We also had, and then we had the levies, of course, for the PACE program. So we approved that, and we also updated the downtown Nanaimo business improvement area. We passed and adopted their new bylaw.
Councillor Thorpe has a question.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, and I'm sorry to interrupt, Ms. Fulla. Under casino revenue, the decreased contribution, is that simply a reflection of decreased casino revenue, or is it a result of the change in ownership of the casino?
The change is a result. We have seen since COVID, casino revenue has dropped every year, and we do try to project it based on an average, but then we update it when we always get the final quarterly payment for the year too, because we don't want to put too much into your strategic infrastructure reserve and then you make commitments and we don't have the funding available.
Right. Thank you. Thank you.
They're gambling online. They're
Yeah.
not going to casinos.
For sewer and water, we updated user fee revenue projections based on our 2025 results. We added the debt servicing for the Public Works Yard project. We adjusted committed contingency for the new contract. As well, we updated benefit rates. For sewer, we also updated internal borrowing costs to reflect the actual borrowing that was undertaken in 2025, as well as the remaining project costs that were carried forward into 2026. So next steps. On May 4th, we plan to bring the 2026 to 2030 financial plan amendment bylaw, as well as the 2026 property tax bylaws for first 3 readings, and we are targeting adoption on May 11th before, of course, the statutory deadline of May 15th. And if council has any questions, otherwise we'll be bringing the bylaw forward.
Thank you very much. Councillor Perino.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I have 2 questions. Ms. Fuller, you did touch on it, the very second slide. I hate to take you back, but the projected property tax increases, and what you've got for 2029 and 2030 is 0 for the asset management, and I've certainly learned being here, we have to have that every year. I wish we could do more, just to protect ourselves for the future issues that we face. Can you just explain why they're set at 0 in your slide?
Through the chair to Councillor Perino, because when we did the last update, you approved the increase for a 5-year period.
Okay.
So that ends in 2028, and we anticipate we will bring back a update to the asset management plan before that 1% expires, because as I mentioned, staff doesn't see that that 0 would be realistic for that reserve, because we keep seeing inflation, we bring on more assets.
Exactly.
We have an infrastructure funding gap that we need to stay on top of.
I think it's probably the most important thing that we do. The other question that I have is on the summary of changes to the budget drivers. I'm not sure which slide that is. I apologize. Mine says 13, but so I just wanted to take you back, and you did touch on it, but I just didn't completely understand. So if you would explain it again, the summary of changes to budget drivers under wages and benefits, $916,300, which is a 0.56%. Can you just explain how that is figured?
Yes, so for final budget, we had to update final benefit rates. Once we added the new benefit rates, the impact to the general fund was almost $990,000, the impact of benefits. Then factored into there is also we moved that one position, so we moved a position out of the RCMP contract and as a municipal employee. So there's an increase of an FT there, but a decrease of a position in RCMP.
Yes.
We had some minor adjustment to positions because we do have QP positions. There is a review process to ensure that positions are at the appropriate wage level. So we had some adjustments related to that.
Okay.
We did have to tweak the committed contingency based on the QP contract that was agreed to.
Yes.
And then we also took, reduced committed contingency by $250,000. So if you recall, you had a decision slide at provisional about doing a negative contingency for vacancies, and we agreed on $750,000. But once we saw the results for 2025, and we don't see that trend changing substantially in 2026, we did increase that to $1 million to help reduce that surplus for 2026 and help offset some of those benefit changes to keep the tax increase as low as we possibly could.
It's just such a huge increase, but it's not what we call for new employees or, extra people. It's about the benefits that they already have been receiving, and
Yeah, the benefits were
That's
a
something.
huge impact on the budget this year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gesselbrook.
Thanks. Just clarity, what's the final total currently in our special initiatives reserve?
I'll have to just log on to see. Through the chair to Council Gesselbrook, the projected 2026 closing balance is $4.2 million.
Okay, great. I'm just confused, so we just allocated 5.4 million into it from the surplus?
No, so from surplus, you moved funds into the special initiatives reserve. So the student ones, I was mentioning the strategic infrastructure reserve, sorry. The special initiatives reserve, the projected closing balance is $3.2 million, but you do have a potential spend there that's reflected there
I'm confused. I'm looking at highlights of the general fund operating surplus. The surplus allocated to the reserves as follows: specials initiative reserve, 5.4 million. That's
I'm sorry.
finance and audit, April 15th, corporate services, 2025 financial statements. So that would have been at the end of December 31st. So we've drawn down from there.
Oh, so in the financial statements, you allocated money to the special initiatives reserve, but some of that was committed for the project contingency allocation, so $1 million went to that. Then $4 million went to council priority projects, and you've already earmarked some of that money for a project.
Okay, and it's earmarked. Gotcha. Okay, I'm tracking. Thank you. And so now, with the earmarked funds, after all that, there's still 3.2 in there?
But then you have other funding. So that's the projected 2026 closing balance. Total unallocated, because you have allocations from that in 2027 and 2028. You have just over 300,000 that you haven't allocated to anything. But then you also have 375,000 for unhoused initiatives on top of that sitting in your special initiatives reserve. But you've earmarked that specifically, so I'm taking that kind of off the table because you've already said you want to use it for something related to those initiatives.
Great, awesome, thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Manley.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question through you. I'm just looking actually at the annual financial statements too, and a couple of reserves caught my eye. One is, I'm sure this has been explained to me before, but just a quick explanation, the cart replacement, and then the Knowles estate. Is that somebody that's a family that's donated a bunch of funds to the city, and there's a special spend for that?
Through the chair to Councillor Manley. So the cart replacement reserve is where we're putting money aside, because eventually the carts associated with our automated collection for sanitation will need replacement. And so when that happens, rather than having to impact sanitation user rates to replace those carts, we anticipate having enough funding set aside that we'll be able to replace those carts. What needs to be determined is if it would be a mass change out or a phased. As we get closer to the end of life of those initial carts, the sanitation department will be doing a review and seeing the most optimal way that we can replace those carts. Then the Knowles estate, you're correct, that is a donation that we received, and there is restrictions on how the funds can be spent, and we are not permitted to, we're only permitted to spend the interest earned on the funds. We have to keep the initial contribution there, which is $385,952. So the minimum reserve balance always must stay above that, because that was the initial donation to the city that we are required to hold on to.
And what is our requirement for spending on that?
It is supposed to be used for improvements in the south end area. So yeah, parks and recreation stuff in the south end area.
Great, thanks for that.
Thank you. Not seeing any further questions. Ms. Fulla, thank you very much for the update. Appreciated. We have no delegations, and on to reports. And the first one is Community Environmental Sustainability Project Grant. Mr. Holm, Mr. Stewart, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Your Worship and committee members. I'll just give a little bit of background on the program and the 2026 applications, and Mr. Stewart's available to answer questions if the committee has any. So this program, the Community Environmental Sustainability Grant Project Program, was established in 2023, provides up to $20,000 annually in funding to support small environmental sustainability projects, up to $5,000 grant available per project. Council established evaluation criteria. Staff committee evaluates the applications and makes recommendations. The projects are meant to be community-based, not already covered by existing grants, and are supporting and in line with city plan green, so the community plan green Nanaimo policies. Just as a bit of background to 2025, we had 8 applications for requesting $32,687 in initiatives. 6 of those were awarded a total of $17,500. That was 2025. This year, 2026, the intake has seen 14 applications with a total requested value of $53,240, so significantly more than the $20,000 available. 9 of those are recommended to be supported by the review committee. Those are outlined in the report, and the proposal would consume the full allotment of $20,000 for 2026. And happy to take questions, and Mr. Stewart is here with the details as well. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kesselbrock, then Councillor Thorpe, and Councillor Perino.
Thanks. Just a question. Of the projects the review committee reviewed, was the 9 selected based on the sole applications that met the criteria, or were they selected that this is what we could afford to fund? So I'm guessing the projects that did not receive funding, if funding was available, would they have met the criteria for a worthwhile project?
Yeah, to Councillor Bessick through the chair. The answer is kind of both. Depends on the project. There were some projects that we didn't feel met the criteria or suited better for other grant application types. If we had more funding, we would have likely awarded more funding. We were based on, the funding was awarded based on the amount we had, and it was evaluated by the guidelines and criteria as they're reflected in the report.
Great, thanks. Just a comment. I think, you know, for the amount of money that we are investing to the amount of like volunteer effort that we're leveraging and improving, you know, different areas in the community, you know, I think it's something that council should look at of increasing that grant range, you know, maybe to $30,000 or $40,000. And also I'd be interested, you know, in the cases where the review committee is, you know, sees there are a lot more worthwhile projects in the funding to report that to council potentially. I don't know if that is an appropriate thing to do, so that council's aware in that day if there is surplus that we could potentially allocate to activate those projects as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Through you, if I may, gentlemen, thank you. I always appreciate the thoughtful work of staff in coming forward with these recommendations because I know it's a difficult job. I do have a couple of questions, and I probably should know the answer. First of all, are there any limitations on groups applying, say, for more than 1 year in a row or more than several years in a row? Do we have any limitations on that or other limitations? And secondly, do we have a process for evaluating the projects upon completion so we can judge in future if they are effective?
Yeah, to the chair through Councillor, or to Councillor, sorry, through the chair. To answer the first question, in terms of limitations for groups, there are none. We tend to not want to see the same project coming back and forth. One limitation we do have in the grant guidelines is it cannot cover operational funding. Mm-hmm. So we see the same project continually, then that raises a red flag, obviously, that it starts to become operational, and what we don't want is groups dependent on this grant funding year to year. And I've now forgotten your second part of your question. Sorry, Councillor.
A follow-up assessment of the effectiveness of the programs?
Yeah, so we do require a 1-year report, which we then publish on the website. They are required to submit a report if they do decide to issue another grant. So we would evaluate that, and so those applications that previously received funding were required to submit a report, and that was included in the package that went out to the evaluation team.
Perfect, thank you very much. And I'll just comment, Your Worship, that I really appreciated the, excuse me, the anecdotal rationale that was provided for the decisions that were made. I don't recall seeing that before in grant application reports, but that was very useful. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Perino, please.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I agree. I thought the explanations were really helpful, Mr. Stewart, and Mr. Holmes. I really appreciated that. The question for me is, particularly when I look at one of them, you said that you felt the application may be better suited for a social development grant. So do you always, when you turn down a particular area that is requesting money, do you always give them options for where else they might go?
Yeah, typically we would wait until council makes a decision before we would follow up, but absolutely we would then provide first a letter to all the applicants letting them know the status of their application. I should say that the council report was shared with the applicants so they're aware as soon as it became public, but afterwards we would have a follow-up, and yeah, some of those comments would typically make it into the letter. So we'd also share with other staff. So for example, the social planning staff, that these folks are interested and have this program.
Okay, because I find some of them, like they're so closely aligned with what the social development grants are for. I thought, boy, it must have been tough in your position to make the decision. So yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If there's no further questions, someone care Councillor Brino is making the recommended motion. Councillor Eastmer, sorry, you've got a question.
Well, move the motion, I'll second the motion. Did you want to speak to it? No, I'm okay. I guess I'm interested in Councillor Gesselbrecht's comment around potentially bumping up funding for this, because I think that so much is accomplished with this money. And it is a little bit disappointing to see some of the things that weren't approved, specifically like there's a project in the south end for some planters along Halliburton, and then also the Harewood Neighborhood Association had a really interesting idea, and there's concern about for the south end one about a maintenance plan, but I know how dedicated that community is to volunteering, and I think that they would be able to pull that off. And then the Harewood Neighborhood Association's plan is ambitious, but I think it's really cool. And just to have like two good projects in the south end where there's, you know, the community puts in a lot of attention, but it doesn't necessarily feel like it gets a lot of love back from the city. Like, I would really love to be able to support projects like that. So if there was a way for us to be able to bump up the funding a little bit, I think it would go a really long way. But I'm certainly happy to support the projects that have been selected thus far.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hemmons.
Thank you, Your Worship. Happy to support the projects, appreciate the work of staff, also really appreciate the narrative of why folks were successful or not. I'd be happy to explore a budget increase in the next budget, but this year I think it feels a little, and while I love that we're batting for the south end, I think staff have done a really good job in a tricky, difficult situation, so I'm happy to support as is. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Manley.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks to staff for the report and the information they provided, and there's some great projects in here. I would agree that funding, we should review this next year because a lot of this work really assists the city in accomplishing goals through volunteer efforts. So appreciate the report. I'm happy to support it as is. Thanks.
Councillor Gesselbrock.
Thanks. In the projects that weren't accepted, just back to my earlier question, you know, regardless of the location that they came from, were there projects that would have met our current acceptance criteria that weren't accepted just because there was a funding, like a limitation to 20,000?
I mean, to start, all the projects that applied were deemed eligible and reviewed by staff. To speak to some specific projects that were brought up, both of the projects in the south end and Harewood, some of the concerns were it works in city property. And I think that's just a challenge for community members in general, is knowing who to reach out to connect with staff to get those permissions. But those were some challenges related to available space. Maintenance was brought up, some of those issues as well. But to answer your question, all the projects were deemed eligible. As I mentioned earlier, some of them maybe didn't necessarily connect with the city plan green goals, but connected with other goals of city plan. But yeah, I don't think there was not a project that we considered ineligible.
Right, so it was more like
Yeah.
the analysis on those other projects was like, okay, if we have a limitation, these are why this top 8 are quick, easy. There's no extraneous things that need to be considered, and so if we have to make that thing. I have a question to finance staff. I'm curious, like, if we did want to, for this funding round, you know, for the projects that are eligible, be able to top it up, where could we potentially pull that money from?
Through the chair to Council Gesselbrock, you could, we haven't completed the budget, so it could be taxation, or it could be strategic infrastructure reserve.
It'd be a one-time thing for this round. So strategic infrastructure, strategic initiatives. I know we're looking potentially to pull 100,000 from there. All right, there's $300,000 that's left in there.
Yes, there is money in there that you could fund an additional top-up for 2026.
Right. Okay, great. I'm just thinking in terms of money invested and, leverage of what it does in the community, it seems, compared to other things that we might be considering spending money on, this is a pretty easy one that can activate community groups and really get people engaged in ownership in their community. So I think it's something that we should seriously consider. So I might put together a motion for later on in the Finance Audit Committee for us to consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Perino?
Thank you, Worship, and a question through you to Ms. Fuller and Ms. Mercer. The discussion by Councillor Gesselbrock, we often have groups that come to the table to say, we need extra funding, or we're trying to do this, or whatever. I'm just wondering the suggestions that you had for where money could come from for this particular granting options. Wouldn't those same funds be used for groups that come as individuals to this table?
Through the chair to Council Perino, yes, that's correct. So the Special Initiatives Reserve has some unused money in that, about 300,000. So it is applicable that you could fund an additional
whatever
bump up here, and it could be used for another organization or organizations that come in front of council asking for money.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm very much in favor of what Mr. Stewart and Mr. Holmes have done on this report, and ready to, but I would prefer to have staff recommend that we make bumps when you feel there's a need, or you see enough applications that come forward that need to be addressed. This is where I think we need to depend. Like Councillor Gesselbrock said, the volunteers are doing incredible work, but we depend upon the staff to review the applications. And if you feel that we need to bump these up, then I would be willing to look at that in the future.
Thank you. Motions on the floor. All those in favor? And any opposed? Not seeing any. Thank you very much. The next is Sunview Park Partners in Parks Program. Ms. Bhopal Singh, please.
Good morning again, Council. Before I hand over to staff for more details and questions, this is a Partners in Parks program that is an example for the community who may be watching out there, where a group can come forward, set aside some plans that they would like to make in their neighborhood. This particular one is a newer neighborhood with growing numbers of children and families. So it's between the Jingle Pot area and the Wellington area, and it's Sunview and Suncrest Park. So not a very well-known spot for the average Nanaimo, but for the neighbors there, this is an important piece. And this group, the park committee, this neighborhood association, not association, but informal group, have been working with staff. And what they're proposing is that if council would consider contributing 50,000, they would raise 150,000 towards playground infrastructure to enhance their park. So over to Ms. Osborne and Ms. Davis for further details. Thank you.
Good morning. Welcome, both of you.
Good morning, Your Worship. Good morning, committee. I really don't have too much further to add. Our parks planner has met with this group several times. They're very eager and keen to get going. They do have some mountain to climb with the amount that they are due to raise in kind or in donations. However, they are a committed group, and they have already begun work on that fundraising element. There is also a community and amenity contribution in place of 20,000 as well to get them a good head start on the program. So please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you very much. Someone care to make the recommended motion?
I have a question, please.
Sorry, Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you, if I may, to Ms. Davis and Ms. Osborne. I know in this program that staff don't come forward with recommendations unless they feel the community group is well organized and has plans in place for major fundraising, and it looks like this group does. But I also note that the $50,000 is half the budget for the Partners in Parks program for the year. So I don't have a problem with the proposal, but I'm curious, do we have many other projects in the queue that we see coming forward?
Through the chair to Councillor Thorpe, we do have other groups in the queue, yes, and we have weighed the preparedness of this group with those that are in the queue, and we feel that we will be able to allocate all funds this year appropriately, and then also have groups coming together in 2027. We take the opportunity to work through with the groups and find that level of commitment and bring forward the projects that we feel are most achievable in the appropriate timeframes. And so this group rose to the fore for our parks planner based on their readiness.
Okay, thank you very much. And I know that traditionally we don't see more than 1 or 2 proposals come forward during each calendar year, so I'm quite prepared to support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hemmons.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for the report. This is one of my favorite programs in the city. I'm happy to support. I do want to be a bit cheeky, though, and with you two here, ask a question from a previous conversation, and that's about the Knowles Park funding and the fact that we have to keep that nest egg in the bank. And I wonder, given that we've just had a couple of South End projects that didn't get funding, is there an opportunity there to draw for South End specific projects on that specific reserve?
To Councillor Hemmons, yes, within the constraints of the Knowles Reserve, so which is for recreational elements. So I would need to understand a little bit more about some of those specific grants, those applications, but potentially within those constraints.
Could I, I'm not sure if you need a motion, but could I make a formal ask that connection happen, that those projects that did not receive funding are forwarded to Ms. Davis for consideration of Knowles Park funding?
Ms.
Inappropriate?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Hemmons, I think we would need a motion from you on that one. Thank you.
Thank you. I would, if you're amenable, this is a motion on the fly. I'm being very bad. I can
You're
make
simply
it in new
asking
business.
for a report in consideration whether it's possible. I must tell you, I was Mr. Knowles' solicitor. I drew his will. I acted in the probate. We tied her up tight.
So are you saying don't even ask for a
No,
report?
no, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying if it might be best to ask for a report before, because staff is going to have to determine.
I do find it very interesting that we have that money sitting in the bank, and it sounded like from the previous response we have to keep that in the bank. And I would personally, as someone who, you know, as a South Ender, it would be really nice to see what those funds could do. So, Your Worship, what I'll do is I'll put this under new business after we discuss.
Thank you. Councillor Perino.
Thank you, Your Worship. A question through you. The last project that I saw that was just such a huge success was the Whippet. And I just wondered, Whippet?
Harry Whipper.
Harry
Point
Whipper. I've driven by it 1,000 times, looked at the name. Anyway, I'm just wondering, do you remember what we gave to them towards that project? Because that was, they really orchestrated a huge fundraising program and were very successful. But what was our contribution for that? Do you remember?
Through the chair to Councillor Perino, I would have to double check. Off the top of my head, it was $40,000.
Okay.
And the community raised 180.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, you know what, this program works. I'm so impressed to see it come forward and very supportive of this, so thank you.
Thank you. Motions on the floor? No, not yet. Move the recommendation. Councillor Thorpe, seconded Councillor Hemmons. Discussion. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you very much. The next is Beyond Van Gogh, the Immersive Experience Funding Request. Ms. Mercer, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the Beyond Van Gogh Immersive Experience will be held in this Vancouver Island Conference Centre from July 18th to August 29th of this year. The exhibit is put on in partnership with the Vancouver Island Convention Centre, the Port Theatre, Nanaimo Museum and Tourism Nanaimo. The partnership is asking for a $100,000 grant from the city, and it would provide funding that would go towards programs like education and affordable access for families and children, to reduce barriers to participation, helping ensure the exhibit is accessible to families, youth, nonprofits, and first-time arts audiences across the community, as well as for the school district students and recreation summer camp participation. So should council grant this request, funding could come from the Special Initiatives Reserve, as it has approximately $300,000 $1,000 available as a result of other projects that have been canceled or completed and came in under budget. So the partnership group is here today with a presentation. So I will pass it over to them.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mercer. Mr. Milne, Mr. Warburton, Ms. Mayer. Good morning, welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for having us. So I am 1/4 of a partnership that represents some of our most community-based organizations. That is the Port Theatre, the Nanaimo Museum, the Vancouver Island Conference Centre, and Tourism Nanaimo. Here, that came together for this unique partnership to bring this fully immersive exhibit to Nanaimo. So I won't go into too great a detail because I believe you have most of the background on this, but the essential points are that this is going to run for about 6 weeks in the summer. We have received a huge amount of excitement in the community and interest in this event, and it will run from hopefully July 18th all the way through to August 29th, 6 days a week, and we've extended hours to be open late for the night market as well as on the weekends. And maybe you can just go to the next slide. This doesn't seem to be working for me. There it is. So this just gives you a little sense of what it is. It's a fully immersive exhibit. There are educational components as well as experiential components to it. It features all the artwork from Van Gogh through his lifetime, and it's all animated, and it brings all of these works to life. We expect people will spend about 60 to 90 minutes in the exhibit and then hopefully spend the rest of their time downtown. So I'm gonna hand this off to my other counterparts to kind of walk you through the rest of the presentation.
Thank you. Mr. Milne, good morning.
Good morning. Hi, thanks for having us here. So if we can go to the next slide. So the conference center, our purpose here is to attract visitors, drive economic activity, and provide community access when we can. And Beyond Van Gogh is gonna hit all three of those. $5 to $6 million in economic impact over the 7 weeks. And what's significant about this is that when we have conferences like we do right now with the BC Hotel Association and what's going on at the coast, downtown is packed, people are spending money, it's great, but this is always in spikes. So this is gonna be sustained, up to 1,000 people a day. There will be foot traffic going through the downtown. It's gonna be significant. It also, what happens with this is if it is a success, any of the proceeds are gonna go into creating an event like this on an annual basis. So, it just shows the value that the conference center can have with large-scale activations like this. And I think it's a great opportunity for the city to get behind. Many people will come through these doors that have never been here before. The conference and business delegates are not the same type of people who will be going to this exhibit. I'm sure there will be some overlap, but it's a great opportunity to get more people through this building and to see, what a fantastic building it is. So I think we can go to the next one. Oh, it is here. And I'm going to pass this off to Sophia for this one.
Good morning, welcome.
Hello, thank you for having us. So as my colleagues have said, this is a really exciting opportunity for Nanaimo. At the museum, of course, part of our mandate is bringing people in and sharing exciting experiences, especially for people who haven't necessarily been able to experience these kind of things in larger markets. So this is a really unique experience for us. We are working with Tourism Nanaimo, and as you can see here, we are marketing this experience not just on the island, but also on the Lower Mainland, up and down the island, of course, and even down to Washington State. Even at the museum, we're seeing still a large amount of visitation from the States, which is a really nice boost to our visitation as well. That marketing campaign has started already. You've probably noticed the wraps on the buildings and that kind of thing, so that's an ongoing project, and we're getting great feedback from it already. People are coming on board and looking to be involved because they can see the opportunities here. we go to the, is it me? So we've already done an initial capital investment. As you can see, the various organizations have already invested in order to be able to secure the exhibit and bring it in to Nanaimo. This has been very much a partnership right from the ground up, and making sure that we are able to do this in a fair, equitable way, and also best using the assets that we can each individually bring. And that's one of the things that excites me about this partnership, is we all have very different elements that we can add to this and enrich it. And of course, for the museum, the community and social benefits are a huge piece for us. That is part of what we do here, and is what's so exciting. And this obviously expands our reach in a way that we couldn't do alone. So the benefits of this exhibit, some of them, although there are more, and what the funding would help us with, is providing youth and educational access. We know that there are many day camps, school district participation in the programming that we'd be able to offer. The exhibit does come with some programming attached to it, but we look to enrich that through some of our museum staff. And one of the elements that was on one of the other slides is that I'm really excited about is also professional development options for people here that haven't been able to work on something of this scale. So there's tourism experience, attractions experience, and things like some youth and programming experience that can also be, we're gonna let our staff be able to develop some of these programs and new programs for this. We would very much want it to be as accessible to as many people as possible. So being able to offer reduced ticket pricing for families, certainly being able to engage with the LEAP program would be a huge benefit, and that's something we're already working on. The cultural reputation, you know, Nanaimo is already a cultural center of great value, and being able to elevate that and bring more people in and show that off is a huge benefit to us all. And then one of the things that excites me the most is the sustainability piece. Any surplus for that, the goal of this is to then put forward into future projects that we can continue to grow. There is some foundational work that we're already investing in with this project that will help us with those, and will be one time, or things that we can invest in that will help us move things forward in a smoother way next time we do something large, with the goal that ultimately these are funds that, as we grow, if we can grow this, would be able to also be invested back into community initiatives of different types. That's me. You want to finish off, David? Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I'm here mostly just to answer questions if people have them. So.
Councillor Perino, Councillor Thorpe, then Councillor Hemmons.
Thank you so much, Your Worship. Do we know the price tag yet for the tickets?
Yeah, they're already on sale. So we're doing an early bird price point, and it's $40. That includes all fees and taxes. That's your through the door price. There is also a seniors price, as well as a family pack for 4 and children's pricing.
Okay.
So islandevents.ca is up and running, and you can see all of our ticket price points there.
Okay, thank you. And the money that is raised from the ticket sales, how does that get distributed and so forth? What does that cover off? Because I'm just...
Sure.
I'm doing if we're going to spend $100,000, and of course you've got tourism money and you've got port money, and you know what I'm saying? I'm just wondering where that ticket money goes.
Yeah, so it's primarily going towards covering the cost of the exhibit. This is an enormous project. There's a reason why exhibits and projects of this size have not come to civic centers of our size. The economic model is very high. The cost to access an exhibit of this reputation and of this quality means that we are paying a very considerable price to bring a team in from across the country to come and help us set and load this up, as well as our operational costs. So this project has about pretty close to $1 million budget. So it's a hill for us to climb. This contribution would not be insignificant in helping us get there. But between the 4 organizations, we've put almost $400,000 into this project. So ticket sales are where we need to make up
The
a
balance.
good portion of this. And that's going to go towards a whole bunch of things. I'm literally in interviews right now hiring for jobs for this. So we're hiring a bunch of local people to come, a whole bunch of students, hopefully, to work this event. It's going to take 22 people over a week to just load this into the conference center. So it just gives you a sense of the size and scale of this project.
Good, thank you so much.
Thank you. Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, just a comment, if I may, because I don't think I've seen this before, a project such as this, which is huge. But I'm really impressed with the fact that we're undertaking this as a partnership between major players in the city. So it's not just a tourism initiative, it's not just the Port Theatre, it's not just the museum, it's not just the conference center. It's everybody working together to make this happen, to make something positive happen in our city. And as Mr. Millen knows, as he's now a member of the Tourism Board, tourism is very excited about this project, and they feel it will be a major driver for visitors to our city, and they're already busy marketing it. So thank you for your work.
Thank you. Councillor Hemmons, then Gesselbach and Eastmere, please.
Thank you very much. I'm so excited about this coming to Nanaimo. When I saw the wraps go up and I saw the people get really excited about it on Facebook and received the, tickets are on sale now. There's a lot of excitement, and I'm really grateful for all of the work that's gone into it. A couple of questions about the funding. You noted 100,000 pledged from each of the 4 partners. Did I hear you correct there?
So each organization, or the 3 organizations, had to put in $75,000 in an investment to just acquire the license to bring this. Tourism has put in a cash contribution of $50,000. That has gone towards helping our early marketing costs, as we didn't have any incoming ticket cash flow. But beyond that, we've put significantly more into this project. The Port Theatre alone has invested almost $20,000 in building the ticketing platform for this, because the other option would have been to outsource this to an American company and have $6 of every ticket go towards paying them. Instead, that is going towards hiring new staff at our ticket center that have been selling these tickets for weeks now and will continue all the way through to the end of the summer.
Wonderful. And just to note, the partners who have put in the $75,000, that cash will go back to your organizations.
Well, we're hoping that we're going to do really well. It's early in the game to know, and we have big aspirations, but our hope is that this becomes sustainable, independent of any request to the city in the future. That if we can make a little bit of a nest egg, then we can reinvest that in bringing another exhibit. And there's all sorts of exciting possibilities. If this partnership is proven to be successful, and I think it has, we've invested in some of the technology that we need to be able to support this in the future, that we have a model that maybe this could be something that would be exciting for us every year or every other year. And I think do what we all hope and we know Nanaimo deserves to be, and that is to be put on the map.
Thank you. And as Councillor Thorpe said, I think the partnership already demonstrates its success. So thank you for your work.
Thank you. Councillor Gesselbach.
Great, thank you. I think it's really cool to see everybody working together and trying to build, the infrastructure to be able to do this on an ongoing basis. And I think that would really benefit our community, having more of these type of exhibits and experiences coming through. So that's great work. I really appreciate that. I'm just curious, where was the last nearby major center that had this exhibit? Because I feel like I recall it being somewhere in
just a couple years ago, it was in Victoria.
Okay.
That they actually had to, there wasn't a venue or a partnership there, so they had to actually bring their own tent and set this up in a parking lot that was near the train yard. A lot of people saw it, and they had a much smaller run. So that's why we had the confidence to say that not everybody on the island had an opportunity to see it the first time, and we're going to run this for a much longer period of time. It's also gone to Vancouver a couple years ago as well. And our hope and what we've seen on social media is that people are interested in coming back, bringing their families that didn't have an opportunity to see it. And so that's why we actually have advertising campaigns in the Lower Mainland and in the US.
Great, and as you mentioned before, this type of exhibit or experience, or I don't know exact terminology to call it, but it is a type of exhibit style that there's multiple different expressions, like artists or ways of doing it that it could sustain. You know, if something, and I did something like this every couple of years, for example, there is a lot of material and content.
Yeah, so exhibits is something that I think Vancouver Island as a whole has actually missed out on. They're hugely, wildly popular in major metropolitan cities. So Body Worlds was a really big example of one that was basically of anatomy and cadavers. But there's like Lego exhibits and there's space exhibits and all sorts of interesting things. This is just the tip of the iceberg. And this was one that we felt we could deliver as a pilot project. But really, there are hundreds of these type of exhibits that are out there that most of us have never been able to experience unless we've gone to the Vancouvers and Torontos of the world.
Great, thank you. No, I appreciate the vision, and that'd be cool if we got a Body World type exhibit coming through here. I remember going to see that.
Totally.
That was, wow. Great, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Councillor Eastrom, please.
Thank you. Really excited to see all the partners working together to make this happen. I think it's something I'm hearing a lot of excitement about in the community, so that is great. I remember us getting a presentation about this coming, and I don't remember there being any sort of hint that we were going to be asked for money at that point. And like, am I misremembering, or like, was there a possibility that the city was going to be asked for money, or did something change with the budget that made this ask necessary?
Yeah, I can't quite speak to Chuck's presentation because I wasn't there, but it was always in the plan that we were going to ask the city for some type of contribution. I think one of the things, if I had to guess, was just the approach in how this could be asked of the city. For example, we are aware that the city has other granting streams, for example, for arts and culture. A lot of the clients at the Port Theatre apply for those grants to come and put on their presentations. However, we felt that this was just such a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It was such a rare special project, almost like the Olympics, that going to one of those traditional streams would have, if we had been successful in our request, would have completely depleted that fund and taken something away from the community. And also, we were still in the process of negotiating the contracts and really, truly investigating all the hard costs. So we didn't want this request to be premature in that maybe, hopefully, the budget was going to be sufficient to cover it, or all of these other parts had been considered. So it's been a bit of a journey to get to that point, which is why I think this request is coming now as opposed to quite a bit earlier.
Okay, I think like in future I'd love to know about it earlier. It makes it really awkward when like the ads are up and like everything is happening and like we really want to support it, and then the ask is like, oh, do you want to facilitate like community access and education? And it's like, yeah, like obviously I want to support community access and education, but like speaking to like the funding that goes to other arts groups, like it all eventually essentially comes from the same place, and then like those other projects, we have to see a lot more detail about exactly what the money is for, and like, and then $100,000 is a nice, lovely round number, but like I'm having trouble understanding like exactly how it goes towards like affordable access, because I'm like, okay, so the exhibit is already existing, like it's projected into the room, like why can we not just waive the fees for families, and like why? Is there a contract or something that means that we have to cover those ticket costs? Like, I know that's sort of a naive question, but like, why, like, is there a way that we just let people in without having to actually like cover those ticket prices, or is that just sort of built in the contract of how this works?
Yeah, so the cost of the exhibit remains pretty close to the same from the license and producer's point of view. We've had to pay the license fee, we have to pay for this team to come in, we have to pay for the freight. This is coming in several trucks to the conference center. So it's going to take about a week to load that in. I think the thing that, most of the partners will tell you is that every access and education program costs money and resources and time to support. So if those could be done with zero impact and at no cost, we would have a lot more of these things. But there's always granting programs and things that need to be called upon sponsors to permit that access in. And so a part of it is a calculation between how many tickets we need to sell versus how many that we can afford to provide complimentary or at cost. But the other thing is also about, there's an education room that we want to activate. There's all sorts of coloring boards and things that we want to support. And even a program like LEAP, which was just in our theater, it takes an enormous amount of staff time to check in with families on their support access needs, whether we need to provide additional support in the theater to staff those requests. There's often a wait list for this program, so we have to call every family in advance to make sure that they still want to come, because sometimes there's people on the wait list. We had this come up with a presentation earlier where we had 300 tickets, which was a lot for us, and we still had a wait list of 200 to come in because we needed to save a certain amount of seats to allow people to come and pay to cover the artist fees and all the operational costs. And so, when we look at these times, the good thing is that we are running a lot of time. But if we do have camp that wants to come in, that takes 90 minutes off the book for that group to come in. And hopefully we want lots of these camps to come in. And so we just have to factor in the operational costs that, we might lose a half day here or there, and we have to pay staff and keep things running. So.
And when it says like reduce barriers to participation, like what are those barriers to participation that this funding will help you address?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we're continuing to talk about is operational staffing. What is required? If we knew that LEAP was going to be coming in for a certain number of days, we'd have to staff appropriately up for that. I just went down to Florida at Fort Myers, and they said this can go way down if you don't have a lot of considerations. If it's just somebody coming in with a regular ticket, they're going to go through and head out. You can run this with a very minimal amount of crew. But if you want to have that education room activated, you need supervision in that room. If you want to have all of these coloring things set up, that's another cost. VR is something that we're trying to do a little bit more investigation on for this exhibit, but we were unclear whether we could actually afford the cost of that, because you need actually 2 or 3 staff to help everybody with the VR headsets and put things on. So it's always a kind of a tricky conversation around exhibits, around you want everything to be included, but what can you realistically support with the amount of revenue that you're expecting?
So it's mainly for additional staffing then?
No, I mean, it's also for time, because we're not necessarily sure that if we don't have this funding support or we don't have these sponsors, then we have to sell every ticket we possibly can. And if this is as popular as we hope, then we can't necessarily block off certain times or even large blocks of times to say camps can come in, because we have to rely on those sessions or those entry times to be available for paid tickets. I think maybe the closest analogy would be like if you're running a restaurant and you have only a certain number of tables, and you have to take 10 or 20 of those tables off your books for weeks or days at a time, that's potentially also lost revenue for you. So there was a lot of thought about whether we just hike the ticket price point up to $70 or $80. We do 3-week run and we just make as much money as we can in that time. That maybe would have been the commercial decision, but really we wanted this to be something that the city and our region could enjoy for weeks at a time at their convenience, catch tourists for the entire summer period, not for them to say, oh, it would have been great 2 weeks ago in July if I was here. We want this to be, a feature of our island. And there was a cost for that decision.
Sorry, one more question. Would it be possible to see like a more detailed breakdown of how that $100,000 could be spent? And I'm interested in, if there is a surplus, in that potentially coming back to the city, just because of like how tight things are and like the projects where like things don't get approved just with a difference of a couple $1,000s. And I just for accountability, like I'm not super comfortable with just giving like 100,000 and then not really being sure like where the surplus goes. So is a more detailed breakdown possible?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd have an answer for you right away on that. I'd want to talk to the partners about it. You know, if we were thinking about this as a loan more than a grant to support these things, then we would have to look at that a little bit more carefully. Yeah.
I think Ms. Bopal Singh has something to say.
Yeah.
Please.
Through your worship to Councillor Hemmons and Council, I just wanted to thank our partners for some grace. We were aware fairly early on, they involved staff, and this is one of these evolving things where as they were playing out with their process, we were also trying to figure out how to provide the appropriate guidance, and in hindsight, we might have suggested that they come earlier. So I just wanted to thank the partners for their grace, and also know that they are taking an interesting gamble with funds for two partners in particular. I'm not sure about the others, where it is not city funds that they're using for this. And so it's a bit of an innovative experiment. And at the same time, Council, you have a myriad of things coming at you. So I just wanted to acknowledge that and to make sure that I was thanking them for their grace, because we have had conversations fairly early on. Thank you.
And I really appreciate the work. It's just, I feel like these are questions I have to ask, and I'm really happy to see this come forward. It's not that I'm not excited about it. It's just that we have so many considerations, and I really want to have like a really strong understanding of how this money is being spent in order to better support.
Totally. I think maybe if I could just leave one kind of parting comment to hopefully boost some confidence, that I think the partnership in itself speaks to a huge amount of credibility behind some of the financial decisions. You know, these are not organizations that operate with huge piles of cash and kind of this commercial mentality. We've always been about serving the community. And I don't think these partners would have come on board to this project and taken such a big risk if they didn't believe in every step of this process. And, you know, speaking for myself, these questions are being asked around the table. How are we best maximizing and being responsible with the amount of money that we have and delivering an experience that meets people's expectations? And so I've just been really grateful for having, you know, not just the leadership of these organizations, but all of their staff have been working on this. And it's really brought us together in a way that I've never seen before. And so I think if for lack of kind of getting into the room with us on a weekly basis, that I think we can put a lot of trust in the people that are making and will be fulfilling our promises to our community for this exhibit.
Thank you very much. I'm not seeing Councillor Manley asking a question. Would someone care to move option 1? Moved Councillor Gesselbrock, seconded Councillor Hemmons. Discussion on this? Councillor Gesselbrock, Eastmere and Prino.
Great. No, I appreciate the innovation for this request and the ambition to bring this to the community. And I also just hearing the response from Mr. Warburton about how the city funds will be spent for that orientation around increasing accessibility for the community. I really appreciate that angle. Like, I really do think that this could be something very special for a lot of the community groups and school children to experience, and having that extended period as well, almost, you know, branding for the community to be able to come in and when they can make it, come in, and also for the tourists coming. I really see it could be a Van Gogh summer. So I do appreciate that orientation, and I think that it will be money well spent. I was actually a little bit more skeptical until I heard that response, and that was very detailed, and I can really see the level of intention and thought put into it. So I'm more than happy to support this funding, and I do appreciate the eye of looking at, you know, are we building sort of the technical infrastructure and ability just in terms of our institutional capital to be able to provide these experiences in the future. I think it's a huge win and a great economic and cultural development exercise, so thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Eastmere.
Did Councillor Perino have a question before? Yeah, maybe you can go ahead with your question. It might help.
Councillor Perino.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was just going to ask if we could get an, after it's done, I'd love to know what the final costs were, what the final revenues were, just so that we know. I think if we're going to take this kind of event into the future, and you know, certainly for the future council that comes along, it is a big investment for us today. So I want to make sure that we know exactly how well it was received, so that we can make good decisions for this in the future, because I think to grow this community the way we want to grow it, we're going to have to do these. And I really appreciate all of your support with all the partners. It's just important that we know how the outcome is. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's fair to say, given the public nature of all of these organizations, there's not going to be anyone hiding any accounting anywhere, are they? Councillor Eastmere.
Thank you. I really appreciate all the answers to my questions today. I was very interested in ensuring that we would be able to give free access to people who are part of the city's LEAP program, and I'm very interested as chair of the accessibility committee to reducing barriers for participation to ensure that the exhibit is accessible. So I am happy to support funding for that, and I think it's great that we're going to have a focus on ensuring that students and summer camp participants can enjoy this exhibit. And so, yeah, just thank you for making this happen, and I'm happy to support, and the first of many similar exhibits like this that will really showcase the conference center and get the public in the doors. And I love that the ticket price has been kept relatively accessible, and that it's on for a longer period of time. I think we'll all benefit from that, so thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Himmons, then Councillor Gesselbrock, and then Councillor Manley.
Thank you, Your Worship. This initiative has my full support.
Thank you. Councillor Gesselbrock.
Thanks, and I do hate to pontificate further on this, but I do just want to draw attention on, I think sometimes when we take on projects that are bigger and newer, there is an element of risk, and we want to make sure that everything is, you know, perfect and dialed in, and I can see that for something like this it's not, and I do think as council, you know, for economic development, cultural development, we do need to get comfortable in taking these risks as pilots, and then, yeah, afterwards, I think that what Councillor Perino says, like, getting the breakdown and look at what we learned, but we're not going to be able to learn and take on bigger projects and bring more value to the community if we don't do things like that. So I do really appreciate the leadership, and I do think that this sets, you know, a precedent of like what we are capable and can take on. So thank you for that, and I look forward to more.
Thank you. Councillor Manley.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to thank the presenters, and I appreciate the teamwork that's gone into this, and I appreciate the answers that have been provided to the questions that the Constable has had. And I really like the idea of making sure that this is accessible to the community, to low-income folks through the LEAP program, the summer camps, and people with barriers to participation. So I know this is a bit of a risk, but I think that we got a really good partnership here. We got some brilliant people working on this, and I have faith and trust that they're going to do a great job of this, so I'm fully in support. Thanks.
Thank you very much. The concerns that Councillor Eastmere has raised, I appreciate that, but we fund tourism in Nanaimo. We fund the Nanaimo Prosperity Corporation. Can I guarantee that every dollar is going to produce a return? No, I can't. It's like increasing social assistance rates. I know in my heart that it's going to cost money, and I can't guarantee that it will improve the lives of people the way it should, but I think most of us are satisfied that it does. And I'm certainly satisfied that what's proposed here. And I might add, in particular, I am very excited about the possibility, if there's a surplus, that we do use this as the seed money for a sustainable foundation and a different approach. I think that's a great idea. So, not seeing any other speakers, all those in favor and any opposed, none, motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation this morning. Good luck on this. Very exciting. Council, I'm going to suggest, sorry? Well, I'm going to suggest that we were supposed to have a break and give staff a break at 10:30, that we take the morning break. That will give an opportunity for Councillor Hemmons to maybe have a quick discussion around. Sorry?
I have it ready to go, but that's okay.
I appreciate that, but you may save some time and discussion on this if you have a discussion with our staff right now, and then you can do your motion. All right? 10 minutes, please.
A short-term rental in the city of Nanaimo? From marketing to pricing to your business platform, there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle. One piece that you won't want to miss is your short-term rental business license. Puzzled? We're here to help. A short-term rental is the rental of a living space for a period of less than 30 days back to back. By following the guidelines of the Short-Term Rental Operators Guidebook, short-term rental operators may qualify for a business license without hurting the long-term rental market in Nanaimo. It's also about being a great neighbor. By getting a short-term rental business license, it's like saying, hey, I promise that my guests will have a dedicated space to park in and that they won't be too noisy. This is, after all, a very respectable establishment. To learn more about the City of Nanaimo's short-term rental guidelines, or if you need a hand getting started with your business license application, connect with us. We're here to help.
Terminal Avenue is the gateway to downtown Nanaimo, and whether you're arriving from the north or the south, it's the first impression of Nanaimo's downtown. While the first impression isn't anything to celebrate yet, positive change is underway, growing from the efforts of grassroots organizations and the vision of Nanaimo's community. A better Terminal Avenue gateway is being created. In the early coal mining days, Terminal Avenue wasn't a roadway. In fact, it wasn't even land. It was a tidal inlet and regularly filled with ocean water. Throughout the coal mining days, the inlet was a depository for coal mining tailings. As time passed, the inlet vanished and new land formed. Through the 20th century, Nanaimo continued to grow, and along with it, the city's transportation needs. The corridor of new land became Terminal Avenue and a part of the Trans-Canada Highway, routing travelers through the heart of Nanaimo's downtown. Over time, more and more people came, more cars filled the streets, and we ended up with the highway-oriented Terminal Avenue that we see today. With the creation of the Nanaimo Parkway in the 1990s, a highway that bypassed the city, Terminal Avenue no longer needed to be just an auto-oriented streetscape meant to move cars quickly through the city, and new potential for the area came to light. In 2016, the Downtown Nanaimo Business Improvement Association, together with the city and the Ministry of Transportation, undertook Terminal Nickel Reimagined, a process that invited the community to help create a toolbox of ideas to improve the streetscape. Now those tools are being put to work, and that work began beneath the Bastion Street Bridge when it was given seismic upgrades. New art integrates with the bridge supports and adds a moment of color to the streetscape. Another step comes with the construction of a beautified streetscape and park spaces along Terminal Avenue between Esplanade and Commercial Street. Following that, a big stride forward will come with a new downtown transit exchange on Terminal Avenue which will expand multimodal connectivity in the heart of downtown. And we're poised for a giant leap when Terminal Avenue streetscape upgrades are extended through downtown all the way to Stewart Avenue. Back in 2015, residents were asked to share their greatest fear for the future of Terminal Avenue. That fear? Nothing will change, and the challenge of achieving an active and attractive gateway to Nanaimo is insurmountable. Those fears were heard, and the challenge accepted. Today, we're reimagining Terminal Avenue as a walkable, green, and beautiful downtown street.
And I'm Wish Cycling.
Wish, I have to say, I'm really loving your t-shirt.
Well, I do love recycling.
Stop it, you're gonna make me blush.
Absolutely. Wait, no, not you recycling. I heart recycling. I like you, but I love the act of recycling. I put everything in the blue cart.
I don't know if you understand the blue cart completely. Have you ever heard of contamination?
Oh yeah, that's when your Brussels sprouts touch your mashed potatoes.
No, that's brumotactylophobia.
You lost me.
Recycling contamination happens when things that can't be recycled end up in your blue cart.
Oh, like Brussels sprouts.
No, I'm talking about recyclables, like packing foam or glass or soft plastics. Things that can't be sorted at the depot. If these things end up in the truck on pickup day, then it contaminates the whole load, and then the whole load is trash.
Oh, I don't heart trash.
Exactly. That's what wish cycling actually is. It's putting something in your blue cart and then just expecting that someone's there on the other end to sort it. The truth is, our sorting process doesn't allow for wish cycling.
What was that?
Sounds of the machines grinding to a halt at the recycling depot. If soft plastics get into the sorting belts, then the entire process comes to a halt.
Soft plastics can do that?
Sure can. That's why your blue card is only for packaging and paper products.
Oh, I see. PPP.
Exactly. Do you still love recycling?
I sure do. I heart recycling.
That's my name.
This is a City of Nanaimo storm drain. This is also a City of Nanaimo storm drain. The only thing that goes in this is rainwater. Anything other than rainwater ends up into the ocean, which ultimately affects the marine life. There's many different styles of catch basins. These are just two, but they both collect rainwater. One has a fish stamped on it. That's telling me that it's unprocessed and it goes directly to an environmentally sensitive area. This is the outfall, so anything that you put in that catch basin is ultimately going to end up into the ocean. If you have any questions about where to take your unwanted wasted products, such as paint products and petroleum products, you can contact the City of Nanaimo at 758-5222. You can also go onto our website. You can also download the Nanaimo Recycles app. Please do not throw material down the catch basins.
If the intersection at Terminal Avenue and Commercial Street is the front door to Nanaimo, then unfortunately, its front yard needs a bit of work. It's currently the site of a big empty hole. The historic block of buildings at 6 Commercial Street first began with an auto store in the early 1900s, followed by expansions that included the Heritage Gene Burns shop in 1955. For the next 62 years,
Councillor Hemmons.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to move that we request a staff report on the criteria for accessing the Knowles Reserve Fund, and further that staff provide an opinion on applying those funds to the unsuccessful community environmental sustainability grants from the South End neighbourhood.
And seconded, Councillor Eastmere. Discussion on this?
If I may quickly, Your
Please.
Worship, just on break, I had a conversation with Councillor Thorpe, who has passing knowledge of this reserve fund that I don't, and I think Council would be well aware or well advised to be aware of what we can do with that money and just understand what restrictions are there. Thank you. Yeah, sorry, I'm going to send this to Sheila right now also. Okay. Move to request a staff report on the criteria for accessing the Knowles Reserve Fund, and further that staff provide an opinion on applying those funds to the unsuccessful community environmental sustainability grants from the South End neighbourhood.
Councillor Eastmere? No. All those in favour and any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. Councillor Gesselbrock, you had something?
Yep. I'd like to move that staff review the remaining 2026 environmental sustainability grant applications, and for those that meet the eligibility criteria and are feasible, authorize the release of up to $10,000 from the Special Initiatives Reserve to fund these projects.
And there's a seconder. Councillor Eastmere, discussion on this?
I speak to those. I do believe that there were a few remaining grants that were worthwhile and feasible that could receive some funding, and I think just a small amount of money and the activation of the different community groups getting out and doing these worthwhile projects that I think that we can afford to invest in that. I did, my mic's not on?
It was.
I did make sure to put into this motion that for those that meet eligibility requirement and that are feasible, so that staff can use their discretion, and should the applications do meet those two, eligibility and feasibility, they can decide to release funds, up to that $10,000, and so there's a lot of flexibility in staff discretion, but I would hate to see worthwhile projects not get funding for such little amounts that is available. So thank you.
Thank you. Before I get to other speakers, my reading of the motion is that these monies would apply to those applicants that received no money already, as opposed
Correct.
to authorizing further funds for those that were approved and didn't get the full grant they asked for.
Correct. Yeah,
Thank you. I just want to understand. Councillor Perino, Hemmons, and Thorpe.
Thank you, Your Worship. Respectfully, a couple of things. We give staff the time to do the background check on these groups. They gave us a full report, and now we're going back and saying the organizations that they did not feel should receive funding at this time, now we're going back and saying fund them. It undermines, in my opinion, the work of our staff. That Mr. Stewart was quite clear. They did not meet the criteria that had been set out, but now we're going to make sure the extra money is there for them. Yes, it's a small amount, but we're undermining what our staff is supposed to be doing about this. That's number one. Number two, Councillor Brown brought forward motions, and I believe, I'm going to be wrong on this, I believe he put it in, or requested that it be put into a bylaw that we do not put motions like this on the fly. This is inappropriate. At the very least, it should be a notice of motion. This is not appropriate. Yes, it's a small amount of money, and I appreciate the effort of these groups. It's not that. But I don't want to do this to staff, and I want us to get on the right path where we don't bring motions on the fly.
Thank you. Councillor Hemmons.
Thank you, Worship. I think I just broke that intention. So I think we have to be fair. If we're going to, you know, consider one motion, we should consider another. So that I started that, my bad. I'm recognizing, so regretfully, I can't support this. It's far enough outside of process, even though it is a small amount. The process is important to me. We spent $160,000 in today's meetings, and we have 2 festivals that I understand are as yet unfunded. So the amount of input we have coming at us is significant, and that's not to say that these projects, which I heard Mr. Stewart say are viable, that's not to say that they are not great projects, but just that we have process in place to release funding, and that process helps us when we're over subscribed, such as we are. I can think of potentially arts groups adding 10K to them, youth athletic groups adding 10K to them, and I'm not sure where we pull the plug on that, so I can't support. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thorpe.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I appreciate Councillor Geselbrock's intent, but as far as I'm concerned, this needs to be part of a future budget process. We have a budget for these grants, and we have a money limit, and if a future council wants to change that, they can. There's always going to be groups out there that are unsuccessful or that could do with more money that we don't have the money to give them. So I can't support this as a one-off. I would support, as I say, I might not be here, but a future council re-examining the budget for this program and deal with it in that way, but not this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Geselbrock, then Councillor Eastmere.
Great, thank you, Chair. Through you, just to Councillor Perino's comments, I respectfully disagree about being disrespectful to staff in their process. I did hear very clearly in the response from our staff member that there were projects that were eligible and feasible that did not receive funding just simply because there was not enough funding to go around everybody, and they had to select the best out of the crop to go there. And I did hear that very clearly. And also, I do think it's important to address this notion about motions on the flies. That this was an agenda item, and it is very relevant. And I think, you know, we do have the ability and capacity as councillors to put forward motions that we do deem appropriate at that level, and it's part of the process. And so, you know, selectively choosing what motions we handcuff just because we disagree with them and go into a procedural issue about it being on the fly, I just think it's a bit disingenuous and cherry picking which motions that we do choose or not. Regardless, I do understand the points raised, and I do think this is worthwhile to bring this up at the upcoming budget if this fails and we do want to increase it. But I do think that these applicants did follow a city process of granting, and we do have substantial surplus from, you know, this past year, and that we are issuing in different areas, and this is a worthwhile thing to consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Eastmere.
Thank you. I have a question about the concern around like motions on the fly and that kind of thing. Like, first off, I didn't support that because I thought that this is exactly what would happen from that. But is this not a different case because we're at a finance and audit meeting? So this would then come to like a actual council meeting in the future? Like, can I have clarity on whether that's appropriate at finance and audit? Because I strongly believe we need to be able to be nimble like this at a meeting like this.
Ms. Gurry.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to Councillor Eastmere. I believe if we were to amend the bylaw, which would come to you for discussion and debate before it was obviously became part of the bylaw, I think that procedurally this would apply to all council meetings and committee meetings. So it would apply. However, those motions that you did wish to move and or that were on the agenda, there would be opportunities, even if that was added to the bylaw, for you to suspend the rules and or by 2/3 or majority vote be able to do motions like this, even in those circumstances.
Okay, so nobody's doing anything wrong because it's not even part of the bylaw yet. So there's no ill intent trying to bring this forward today. I'm in support of this because we heard from staff that all of the projects were eligible to receive funding, and I think it's seeing some of the ones that were turned down. I think they could do a lot with a little bit of money if we were able to bump up those grants. And so I'd be happy to support this and see the projects that didn't receive funding simply because we didn't have the budget for it, to be able to get funding and move ahead with that, because the impact of these community-supported grassroots projects, the bang for the buck is real there, and I would love to see these funded this round.
Does Councillor Manley wish to chime in? I can't see anything.
Sure, I can chime in. I heard staff say that there was a lot of worthwhile projects here, and I think that funding these projects for the neighborhood associations is important. I do agree that I'd like to see a discussion about extending the available grants in the next budget, and I do know that there are other requests that we're going to be reconsidering, so I think it's fair to reconsider this at this time. So I'll support this motion. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Perino.
Thank you, Your Worship. Obviously, the vote is going to happen this morning. You're right, Councillor Smith. There is no bylaw yet. However, I would have expected that since the motion was moved towards going to a bylaw, that we would have respected that. We're not apparently going to do that, but I would like to point out that at least 2 of the applications that were turned down in both cases said that they felt the application may be better suited for a social development grant. All I'm saying is that we gave this opportunity to staff to do, and now we're going to supplement the granting process. I'm voting against it not because they're not worthy, but because the process that we are taking on after our staff have already done the work for us, it's inappropriate, in my opinion. So I'm voting against it. But if we increase the budget for next year, if we're here, we may all be gone, whatever. If we increase the budget, I'm fine. I'm fine with that. I just want a proper process. It doesn't feel right to me at all.
Thank you. I'm not going to support this, and I think that's made obvious by the question I raised. A number of these applicants asked for more money than they've received. This motion is directing staff to throw some money in the pot and then give it to those that got nothing, whereas opposed to the concept, which I think is entirely appropriate, given that we've set up this process, that staff would make the decision that perhaps somebody get more who's already getting their grant. For instance, the Nanaimo Climate Action Hub asked for 5 and they're getting 3. Maybe staff would decide in their wisdom that they should get 4, as opposed to giving more money to Fresh Start or Harewood Neighbour Association. This is exactly what I have said to council over and over again, that I learned at the knee of Peter Ramsey, one of the senior members of the legal community in this town. You lay the tracks, you don't play with the trains. This council decided back in very dark times, and I'm surprised today in some respects that Councillor Thorpe didn't remind us. When the grant process was very political, council moved away from it for very good reasons. This is an interference in that process. I will not support this motion. And please, council, keeping in mind we've all had lots to say. I trust mine's the last word. Let's have the vote, please. I can't force you to do that, but not seeing anyone else. All those in favor of the motion, Councillors Eastmere and Gesselbrock and Manley, and those opposed, Councillors Hemmons, Mayor Krogh, Councillor Thorpe, Councillor Perino. Motion is defeated. Thank you very much. Unless I'm mistaken, there's no one for question period, Ms. Gurry, I'm going to assume, unless Ms. Osborne has a question, being one of the few members of the audience here today. Motion for adjournment, please. Moved Councillor Brino, seconded Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you.